By the time you hear this, your YouTube homepage will probably be flooded or about to be flooded with all kinds of videos talking about the leaks that happened at Game Freak. Most will hype this up as a once-in-a-lifetime event, and that's not entirely inaccurate, but as is common with these kind of things, plenty of wild assumptions and misleading information will find its way into the public discourse. And one example I have already seen made the rounds. The concept origin story for the Pokémon world, created for Diamond and Pearl. Now, I've seen some folks assume that even though this story doesn't make it into the final game, it is still canon, which is possible. After all, it wouldn't be the first time information meant to be canon is kept behind the scenes. However, I don't think that is the case here at all. This should not be taken as more than just an awesome insight into the development of Pokémon Diamond and Pearl. I'll explain why exactly in a second, but first, we all need to get on the same page. So I'm gonna run you through the origin story included in these leaks. Mind you, this is not a hoax or a fan-made thing. These come straight from Game Freak circa 2005. In the beginning, there was a vortex of chaos. All mixed slowly together, and everything was a blur. One day, a large egg appeared in the center of the chaos. For a long time, the egg continued to shake. Eventually, the vortex stopped, and the egg broke. The absolute god, AUS, aka Arceus, was born. The scattered fragments of the egg transformed into giants and attacked the newly born AUS. However, AUS quickly grew and continuously defeated the giants. At last, after a fierce battle, AUS defeated all the giants. The wounded AUS created an alternate self. As the left and right side of AUS's body were different, it created two selves. AUS gathered the part of the defeated giants and poured its blood into them. From the one who resembled his left poured out light, so AUS named it IA, as in Palkia, the god of light. From the one who resembled his right poured out darkness, so AUS named it EA, now known as Dialga, the god of darkness. To the two, AUS commanded that the world be filled with people, and fell into a deep slumber. Although IA and EA were different in appearance, they loved one another, were joined, and had many children. However, there still existed no world, and their frail children, who had nowhere to go, died one after the other. Though overcome with great sadness, IA and EA thought of creating a world where all could live healthy and prosperous lives. IA and EA called their children Rai, that's Yuxi, the god of ice, Mesprit, the god of heart, and Hai, that's Azelf, the god of voice. When Rai opened its eyes, everything that was there appeared. There was now contour and color in the world. When I wished for it, everything that was there could be felt. A sense of calm spread. When Hai shouted, everything that was there trembled. A blessed timbre began to resonate. To the three, IA and EA gave the seed of life and told them to nurture it. The three gathered in a circle and prayed, and the seed sprouted. The sprout quickly grew and became the giant tree of life. However, the tree continued to grow, soon filling the entire world, and no one was able to move. The three asked Father IA and Mother EA for help. EA and IA joined once again, and had three children. The god of the sky, Rayquaza, the god of the earth, Groudon, and the god of the ocean, Kyogre, were born. Rayquaza wrapped its body around the Tree of Life. Groudon and Kyogre slammed their bodies into the Tree of Life. Eventually, the tree fell and broke into three pieces. Ray, A, and Hay prayed, saddened that the tree would rot away like this. But then, the pieces of the broken tree would transform into the sky, earth, and ocean. Rayquaza became the pillar that holds the sky. The shadow that reached into the heavens became the three gods who sustain the sky: Dragonite, Gyarados, and Tyranitar. The air filled the sky, and the stars sparkled. Groudon became the land that covers the earth. The roar of the diving land became the three gods who sustain the earth: Dabu, Saan, and Goduan. The identities of these Pokemon are not clear because their names don't correspond to anything, but I suspect Dabu may be Garchomp, but let's continue. The earth shook and the mountains stirred. Kyogre became the veins of water that embraced the ocean. The ripples that disappeared into the seas became the three gods who sustained the ocean. Latias, Metagross, and Latios. The ocean was filled with water, and the waves whispered. Thus, the world was born. IA and EA, the various gods, were very pleased with this, and filled this world with their children. That peaceful world was a paradise for the children of God. The children of God would continue to multiply. Through that, words would change little by little. Over time, the gods would begin to call those who lived in the world by two names. The children of God, who resembled the Great Father, IA, would be called Pokemon. The children of God, who resembled the Great Mother, EA, were called humans. The absolute God, AUS, will soon awaken, and seeing the world filled with its descendants will promise great abundance and prosperity. Accompanied with this story is an image that I won't show you out of fear of the Nintendo ninjas, but it shows the patterns on the floor of the Sinnoh ruins and also seen during the battle against Arceus in Legends Arceus, with Pokemon names laid out to represent their place within the Pokemon creation theory. The names are mostly the same as mentioned here, but also clarify once and for all that Ho-Oh, Lugia and Regigigas are meant as leaders of their respective legendary trios. That shouldn't come as a surprise, but still. Either way though, while that sigil may have survived into the final game and the canon Pokemon lore, I don't believe for 1 second this origin story is meant to be taken as the truth nowadays. There are so many inconsistencies here, so many things that make no sense within the current Pokemon lore as is canon. This is an early draft of what the final game received for the story of Sinnoh, I am certain of that. That said, it starts out strong. It explains how the fragments of Arceus' egg became giants that waged war, which might just be the only thing in this text that is truly hidden lore meant to still be correct. The reason for that is that because in the Candelave City Library, a book can be found talking about the Arceus plates, which mentions that the power of defeated giants is infused into the plates. Seems like we finally learned who these giants are, that's a point for the leaked lore. However, from here, things come crumbling down fast, and it becomes painfully obvious this version of the origin story of Pokemon is from a time early in Diamond and Pearl's development, and plenty of details from this version of the story ended up scrapped. First of all, it calls Jolga and Palkia the gods of light and darkness, which is not at all what we know them as. They're the gods, I guess, not even really that, but okay, of space and time. That's not exactly subtle. If they were at one point designed to be focused on light and darkness instead, that's super cool information, don't get me wrong, but it is a pretty heavy hint that this version of the story was abandoned along the way. Next, I can't imagine the line, they, as in Jolga and Palkia, birthed many children, only for them to then die off is something Game Freak still considers part of the Pokemon canon. Not to mention, where's Giratina in all this? It isn't mentioned once, it's not even alluded to, it's not even on the graph either. Pretty strong hint at this design document actually predating the creation of Giratina, which is super cool in and of itself. Next we find the passage about the Lake Trio, and what's interesting there is that the role they serve in the creation story of Sinnoh and the Pokemon world is actually quite similar to the final game, just with different details because it's a later version of the same tale. In this concept one, Uxie, Azelf and Mesprit are created to help control Jolga and Palkia's powers and help bring life to the world. While the way they do that and the implication that the trio are the literal children of Jolga and Palkia are removed in the final game, they do still play the role in the Sinnoh lore of helping bind Jolga and Palkia together, preventing their immense powers from becoming chaotic. However, it is outright said that in the modern version of the lore, Arceus created the trio, not Jolga and Palkia. And then we come to a part that is super interesting and we have no comparison for, being the creation of Rayquaza, Kyogre and Groudon from the then previous generation. We have no clue whether the Weather Trio actually ties into the story of Jolga and Palkia and perhaps now Arceus. I will admit this is fuel to the fire that Arceus may also have created those three, there is at least nothing in the lore to contradict that. However, we definitely can't take it for truth either, and the idea that Jolga and Palkia made them is, in my opinion, ridiculous. Not as ridiculous as the part that follows this though. It describes how each of the Weather Trio creates their own trio of gods to help rule their realm, and while we can't exactly make out which 9 Pokemon these are supposed to be, the names we do know don't make any sense whatsoever. Gyarados is not a god. It hasn't been since the late 90s and the concept of Pokegods, which was all false by the way. Metagross is the god of the ocean? The sea floor maybe, because there's no way that thing is comfortable in water. Besides, it's hinted at pretty strongly that Metagross is extraterrestrial, not a god whatsoever. Check out this video if you want to know why. Tyranitar as a god of the sky is also a ridiculous idea. No way that was ever close to becoming canon. What is very interesting though, and a much more intriguing conclusion to draw from this final section, is that the idea of legendary Pokemon being linked to what we have long called pseudo-legendary Pokemon has actually been considered at Game Freak. It has never really happened, no connection has canonically been established like that, but it's interesting to know the idea has crossed Game Freak's mind. It's actually relatively recently that Game Freak has even acknowledged the Pokemon concept of pseudo-legendaries, although the name they have used has most commonly been powerhouse Pokemon. So to hear they were already thinking of it around 2005 is crazy. And that is exactly how this story should be taken. A crazy, one-of-a-kind look into the behind-the-scenes development of arguably Pokemon's greatest lore. Sure, it was obtained in an illegal and immoral way, and I hope the information remains about looking back instead of at the future, but the information itself is a treasure trove. But again, this story is not canon. There's way too many inconsistencies with the actual lore we did get in Gen 4 for it to be. But anyway, what do you think of this original Pokemon lore? Share it in the comments below. If you enjoyed my takes, please consider giving the video a like and subscribing to the channel to stay updated on all my future Pokemon content coming up. For now, thanks for watching and enjoy the rest of your day.